So today we're going to do the sums and differences. And we've already done, the first one we'll start with is the difference in squares. So this is kind of like, I guess, just in case you guys don't know this at all, if you have a number, number raised to the second power, that's 4 squared, 4 to the power of 2. If you have something to the third power, that's 4 cubed. It's all based on squared, is because that's how you find the volume of a square, length times width. And cubed is all based on how to find the volume of a cube, length times width times height. Anyways. So back before, when we did the the difference in squares, two things. They both had to be perfect squares, and they had to be different. They had to be subtraction. So you don't need to, you need to know this because we learned this before. You'll have this on the exam, whatever, but you won't need to know it for this lesson. But we did this by saying 4x squared is 2x squared, and 49 is 7 squared. So we plug it into the formula, 2x plus 7 times 2x minus 7. The reason I'm showing you this is because I'm going to start doing it the same way. I'm going to start by listing these out, except for instead of squared with exponents of 2, I'm going to use exponents of 3. Now the good news is, when it's to the third power, when it's cubed, it can be subtraction. So we talked about this is the difference of, or the difference in squares. Now we're talking about the sum and difference of cubes. So it can be a plus or a minus sign. It doesn't make any difference. But they do have to both be perfect cubes. Now to help you out, because I know you guys are pretty familiar with squares, if I said 81, you guys would all know that's 9 squared. 49 is 7 squared. You guys are pretty familiar with those. But not a lot of you guys, for good reason, are not very familiar with cubes. So I made the list of cubes on here. You will get this list on your test. And the reason is because it's got the list of cubes, but also the squares I gave you guys earlier. So I put both of them up there because I wanted you to see what you'll get on the test. So you will get a whole list of squares and cubes on it. So these are the steps in solving this. You guys know I like to do this where I list them out step by step. You don't have to follow every step, but I think it does help. Have to be 2 perfect cubes. That's the big thing. So the first step is finding your A and B. So just like we did with the difference in squares, that's what you're going to do. So it's when you have A cubed plus or minus B cubed, you're going to find where your A and your B are. And you'll see an example when we do this. Then we're going to plug them into the formula or use SOFAs. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then the third step is checking your sign. Here's the deal. I don't care how you do it. The other Algebra 2 teacher really likes to use this, what is it, acronym, how they call it? They say it's called SOFAs, where SOFAS stands for something, and it's square front, front times back, always positive, square back. If you want to use that to memorize it, that's fine. I personally think that the formula is easier, and I'm not going to make you memorize the formula. Because I'm a math person, that I would have just memorized the formula anyways, because there's a lot of repeating things. The formula, the biggest thing is notice how I put plus and minus here. Here's a plus and minus, and over here it's a minus and a plus. I just flipped them. The reason is because if the first one is plus, then you use a plus here and a minus here. Then you use a minus here and a plus here. That's the reason I did it where you either use all the top, the first one the plus, you use the top above those. If the first one's minus on the bottom, use the bottom sign for both of those. The last one's always positive. The third step is checking all that, so we're good to go with that. So I'm going to do the best way to go over this, and I still think some of you guys are probably a little bit like hesitant with this. I personally, the best way to do this is to go over a couple examples, and I think you'll pick up on it. And this is all we're doing today, so it's not going to get much more difficult than this. The next lesson that I'm not going to be here for is solving, and I'm going to briefly talk about that in a little bit, but it's a lot of quadratic equation stuff. But actually, a little bit of a way to check your work, kind of. So I'm going to show you both methods on this first one, because again, they're really the same methods. One is just kind of a way to remember it. I need to know this very, it helps that we already know the plus. So that we know that this side is going to be plus, this side is going to be minus, this side is always a plus. So that kind of helps. You need to know what your A and your B are. So basically, just like we do with the different factors, what number to the third power is 8x to the third? Well, I know x to the third. 8. Now, I'm not going to do a lot of tricky ones, so go and look at your list. These are all the numbers to the third. 8 is right here. It is 2 to the third. So if your x is 2, 2 to the third is 8. That's how you use that table. So 8 is 2x to the third. So I just say 2x to the third is 8x to the third. That's how I start that. Plus, and then what number to the third is 125. Again, use your list. 125 is right here. So that is 5. So that's 5 to the third. Step. Does that make sense how we found those? Always use your list. If your number's not on your list, obviously, again, that list goes on, but it gets, especially with third powers, it gets pretty big pretty quickly. So I imagine all the numbers I give you are probably on the list. But if it's not on your list, it's not a perfect. You can use it this way. Again, I'm not going to try to trick you. So this next step, it's up to you, but I think it's helpful if you're using the formula. I think it's helpful to say, okay, so this is my A is 2x. This is my B is 5. I think it's pulled out. Again, you don't have to do it that way. With that. Now, I'm going to show you using the formula first because I think that's the easiest way. So the first part is to make sure you realize the first part of this formula. That's to say that if you have a perfect cube, if you have a perfect cube, then you can use this formula. So this part is the same thing we already have listed here, and it just helps us find our A or B. So you don't really need this first part. It's just worth saying that you can use this formula when this qualifies. So we have done that part already. The next part is plug it in. Now, since our first sign is a plus, just like I said here, if it's a plus first, I'm going to use the top sign. So since my first sign is a plus, I have A plus B. So my A is x, my B is 5. The next one is A squared. Now, one important thing to remember, 2x squared is but it's got these parentheses, 2x squared, which means the 2 and the x both need squared. So it's actually 4x squared. I, on purpose, didn't want to have numbers up first because it's more difficult. If you don't have a number in front, it's a little bit easier. But again, if you don't have a number in front, I think some of you guys are going to get a bad at it. So I started with one that had a number up here. That is 2x is your A, but 2x squared, the whole thing, is squaring both. 2 squared and x squared. So that's 4x squared. Your next sign, if you are your formula, is a minus. These two signs will always be opposite. You have a plus here, you have a minus here. If you have a minus here, you have a plus there. They will always be opposite. B, so we have A times B. So we have 2x times 5. Well, 2x times 5 is 10x. If you need to list it out, you can. You do not have to. The last one we have is the plus. That's the good news. That's that third sign, I guess. That very last sign is always a plus no matter what. And then it is B squared. Well, B is 5, so that's an easy one. 5 squared is 25. That is your answer. Just plugging stuff into that formula. And honestly, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, this is just my personal opinion, I think the hardest part is when you have a binomial, or sorry, not a binomial. They're both squared. I think that's the thing that most students, if you miss something, I think that's going to be the most commonly missed thing is that a lot of people are going to put 2x squared when it should be both of those squared, 4x squared. Yeah, that's why I'm going to start with one. Now, if you're going to use the SOFA's method, I've never heard of this until we were talking about this in a meeting. But the SOFAs stand for the S is square the front, O is opposite sign, F is front, A is always positive, S is square root of back. Stuff, that acronym, all that is saying is the first one, S, is square to the front. They're talking about, I guess I should start. They're talking about the second set of parentheses here. Means square. Opposite sign means it's the opposite sign of times the back is A times B, the front times the back. So when they say front and back, they're talking about my A and B. My front is my A, my back is my B. A is always positive, that's always plus, and then square the back. Again, the back they're talking about is that 5. So that's what, again, SOFA's just as a way to remember what the formula is. I'm going to give you the formula. I talked to some people about it, and someone said it really nicely, where they're like, well, let's give them the quadratic formula. Well, yeah, I use the quadratic formula. Well, why? What's so special about the quadratic formula that I give you that, and I won't give you this? So I'll give you this formula on the test. If you'd rather memorize it as SOFA's, that's fine. Last but not least, and I know I'm dragging this problem on, make sure my last step, step 3, check your signs. They should be same, opposite, positive every single time. And again, when I say that, I'm talking about if you look at your original sign, this plus here, it should be same, opposite, plus. Same, opposite, plus. If this was a minus sign, it should be minus, plus, plus. It's always that pattern, same, opposite, plus. All right, let's try another one. If you're still a little confused, I think I probably over-talked that, so maybe doing another one quick, we'll clean up some answers. I'm going to have to erase this to make some room, so I apologize. Realize it's literally the exact same, except for now it's a minus, but I did it on purpose. So my 8x squared, same thing, and that's 2x to the third. Sorry, 8x to the third is 2x to the third. Minus 5 to the third. So my A is 2x, my B is 5, same thing as last time. Except for now, we have 2x minus 5. And then we have A squared is 4x squared plus, again, those signs have to be the opposite, 10x plus 25. Can't see it really there. But again, if you look, the only difference is then we started with the negative, or a minus sign, and so the second sign was a plus. So again, same positive, we're looking at this sign, so it's same, opposite, positive. You follow your, it's in there, but again, I think that's, in my opinion, the most confusing part about that formula. Making sure you're using the right positives and negatives. All right, now any question, excuse me, any question on any of those? Okay. So this is it today. This is all we're doing. I will probably not talk about the SOFA's method very often anymore. It's not that I like it. I just think that if I wasn't going to give you the formula, I think SOFA's would be a really good way to help you remember stuff. But I'm going to give you the formula, so I think that's probably going to be easier, in my opinion. But all we're doing is different variations of this, and then I'm going to have you guys do 4 of them, 5 of them on your own. Yes. So the next one is actually the easier one. And again, I taught this first, what people do, but I think it develops a bad habit. I'll show you what it is. X to the third is x to the third. 729, go up on your list and check if you have to. 729 is right here. So that's 9 to the third. My A is x. B is, my B is 9. I have x, and we start with a plus, so x plus 9 times, and this is a bad habit, times a squared is just x squared. Now again, that's fine, that's correct, but it's harder when you have a number with that x, just like I said up here. That's why I taught this way first. So x squared. The next one has to be the opposite of that, so that's a minus. A times b is 9 times x, or x times 9. And then this one's always plus, and then b squared, 9 squared is 81. Hopefully not too bad. And again, I would definitely encourage you, not checking your work as in multiplying everything out, because that would be actually a cool thing. I'm not going to make you do this. But hypothetically speaking, the whole idea is if you actually multiply this, distribute x to everything, 9 to everything, you should end up everything cancels except for the x third and the 729. That's the whole idea. I'm not going to make you do all that work to check your work, but it's a great idea to go back and check with a plus, so I should have same, opposite, plus. Number 5, the next one. The only reason I wanted to do this one is because, first off, we have 27, which is 3, then x to the third, minus. A lot of people get hung up. A lot of people get 1 and they think, wait, nope, this can't, that's not a perfect cube, so I can't do it. If you look at your chart, 1 is on there. 1 is 1 to the third. So 1 is a perfect cube. So it's just 1 to the third, which means your A is 3x, your B is 1, and now you do the same thing you did before. So we have 3x, this is a minus, so it's 3x minus 1. The first sign is always the same sign you started with. Now again, be careful, the first one is a squared. Well, it's 3x, all of it squared, so this is 9x squared. We started with a minus, so the next sign has to be the opposite, is plus. A times b, so 3x times 1 is just 3x. And then the next, it's always plus, and then it's 1 squared. Well, again, 1 squared is 1 times 1 is just 1. But again, I'm hoping you guys are thinking that this is pretty easy because it's plugging numbers in. That said, I understand that that person that I can plug numbers into stuff all day. Very good at in college is very much plugging numbers into variables. That's how super cool I was in college. Okay, a couple more, and then I'll have some of them that you guys do. Now, this happens very often, but if they have it in different order, here's the thing. It doesn't matter at all. If they flip the order, don't change anything. Do the same thing as before. 8 is 3 to the third. 729 you just had. Is that 9? So this is 9x to the third. A is 3. B is 9x. And so I use that for your formula. 3, and then start with the plus. So it's 3 plus. Yes, you're right. You're right. I was testing it. Certainly wasn't a mistake because I don't make mistakes. Yes, thank you. So it is 2 plus 9x times 2 squared is 4. Minus the opposite sign. 2 times 9x is 18x. It's always plus, and then 9x squared, remember, is 81x squared. I know, I should do an over and under. I should gamble on this. And I would bet there's probably, I could say 10 people, obviously not in this class, but overall my 110 students, I bet you there's 10 people that'll miss because they'll just put 9x squared. Make sure you're careful with that. And the last one I'll do for you, then I'll have you guys work on your own for some of these. And I know that, yeah, I'll have you guys work on your own. I'm not going to go into that. Yes, I remember this one. So this one, we have 4x to the third, this is a special one, and this does happen sometimes, and I will tell you that I'm trying to give you a hint when I tell you this. We have 4x to the third plus 864. Now, this is maybe not going to happen with you guys because I've had very much math in my background. You didn't know that already? Probably can't tell from my mistakes, but I did. 4 doesn't seem like a perfect cube. If you check your list, 4 is not up there. Also, if you check your list, 864 is not up there. If you look, 864 would be between here. It is not up there. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something, and I will make you guys a deal. Do not put prime for this one. I will not give you one that's prime. That's my deal. I will not give you one that's prime. I won't give you one that cannot factor at all. In exchange, since I'm telling you that, if you ever have one that looks prime, you can factor something out first. So what I mean by that is 4 and 864, you can both factor out a 4. So if I take out a 4, that leaves 4x third divided by 4 is x to the third, plus divided by 4 is 216. Factored out a greatest common factor of 4, we've done that, not a huge deal. Now if you look, that x to the third is obviously a perfect third. 216 is on our list right here, so now we can do, whoops, not what I wanted. Now we can do the sums and differences of cubes with this. So my a is x. My b was 6 to the third. So a is x, b is 6. So we end up with x plus 6 times x squared minus, because they're opposite signs, 6 times x is 6x. Always plus, 6 squared is 36. Last step, don't forget we took out this 4. That 4 still needs to be in there. So that goes in front, didn't ever move. That's the answer to this one. Now again, the hardest part about that one is mainly realizing you have to take out a greatest common factor. So again, I will promise you, the only ones that you can ever take out a greatest common factor, the only ones are the ones that are perfect cubes, so you have to look at your list anyways. Or if you look on your list, it's not on there. So again, rephrasing that a little bit differently, if you ever look on your list and your numbers are not on there, take out a greatest common factor and then factor. You will not have a ton of those, and I feel bad putting those on and just throwing you to the wolves, so I'm telling you that's the hint I'm going to give you. If it ever doesn't show up on your list, that means you need to take out a greatest common factor. All right, go ahead and do these 5 on your own. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I haven't decided if I'm going to call on anybody yet. Do these on your own. Actually, I'll have you do these on your own, and then I'll put up the answers in a second so you can look at your answers, well, in a couple minutes. That way we'll have more time to work on exit tickets and whatnot. The answers for number 8 and 9 up there, so you can check quick. Hopefully, if you're making mistakes, you catch those now. Again, number 9, in my opinion, the hardest part is remembering this 81x squared. It's not 9x squared, it's 81. You got to square both, the 9 and the x. My other 2 are up there as well. So you can check those answers. I'm going to start number 12 and then. All right, just real quick, again, I'll finish number 12 in a second, but remember, number 12 is one of them that 2 and 250 do not show up on your list, so you need to take out a greatest common factor. In everyday normal life, it might not be that way, but in this class, if you ever have numbers not on your list, they're not perfect thirds, you can factor something out, and then you will have perfect thirds. X to the third and 125 are both perfect thirds. All right, this last one, again, you factor out a 2. For the difference of cubes, that's actually pretty easy, or I should say, sorry, pretty small. Actually, not easy. So hopefully that's not too bad. Always double check. These 2 signs should be the opposite. Minus plus or plus minus. And that last one is always plus. So always check your signs. And don't forget that too. That's another thing a lot of people miss with this one. After at the very beginning, they forgot to put it down here at their answers. Just make sure you remember that. That's just a really little detail. Now the next thing, we're not going to do anything with this. A little bit of a heads up. The next lesson is a little bit more challenging. I guess I should say it more this way. It's a little bit more challenging in the fact that you have to use the quadratic form. We are going to solve. So equal to 0, x squared minus 729 equal, x to the third is equal to negative 729. So equal to 0, so we get the 0 clear. We've done that a bunch of times when we're solving with normal factoring. Then we'll factor it to get this. And then just like before, we have x plus 9. What's going to make that 0? That's negative 9. That's the easy one. That's the obvious part. Or hopefully should be obvious by now. Not attention. The other part, if you try to solve that, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to use the quadratic formula. You will not be able to factor it. And it's going to get you two imaginary numbers always. In normal everyday life, if you have a cube, it doesn't always give you two imaginary numbers like that. But if it's a sum or difference of cubes, it always will. So if you just have a normal, like 3x to the third plus 4x squared minus 5x plus 10, that might give you three real answers. It might not be two imaginary. But if you ever have a sum or difference in cubes, this second part will always give you two imaginary, and it's always going to be using the quadratic formula. I'll tell you with that. I'm not going to give you 100% guarantee, but when I did the answer to this, I noticed a very interesting pattern, and I mustered up my mathematics energy for college, and I did a proof. Shortcut, but there's a good way to check your work on this. So that's going to be pretty helpful. So that's all we'll talk about that. That's what we're going to go on the next lesson. That'll be the lesson that I'm not here for.